Educate Women in Local Leadership. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Bathrooms are down this hall. There's one on the left and one on the right. You will be recorded. Everyone behave. And then the recordings are available on our website. If you actually go to our website, you can find past recordings of WIL programs as well. So I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors, several of whom are in the room. Thank you to our 2025 Women in Local Leadership sponsors. Mountain One, if you want to just give a wave. Mountain One is our lead sponsor this year. Thank you, Megan. And our event supporters are Cardinal Cushing Centers. I think there's someone in the room. Crystal Moon, Holistic Healing, give a wave. Friendship Home, yes. George Washington Toma, TV and Appliance. Phifer PInkham, the law firm, thank you. The South Shore Y, I think so. SteinbergHR. There she is. Sorry. Unique Stairways. Carrie Ann. And Tiny & Sons Auto Glass has a couple guests here. They can give a wave. Maybe not hear it. And the Wellspring group. So if you want to give a little wave, thank you. Can I get everybody? Yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to Megan to say a quick thing about her company.
Sure. Well, good morning. Megan Steinberg, founder of SteinbergHR. I know many of you in this room right now, which is so nice. This was one of my first events when I joined the chamber that I really felt like connected to sponsor and be a part of, and it's just so welcoming. It's such a fantastic event every month. We learn so much, so thank you so much, and thanks for hosting us here. So we provide women-owned boutique HR consulting firm where we really support small to mid-sized organizations, all different industries, anything and everything about your people, your culture, your human resources, as a full generalist. So, love what we do. Lisa actually does a lot of work with me. She's an HR consultant as well. And we've just been really blessed to work with folks here on the South Shore and beyond. And that's it. So, nice to meet you.
Thank Nicole Craven of Sing Explore Create for hosting us today and obviously being our featured speaker. Such a beautiful space. We like to get out into the community and see some of our members' space, so thank you so much for hosting us. I'm going to introduce Jen, and then we'll kick it off. We try to wrap things up just before around 10 with Q&A, and then a little bit more networking at the end. So try to get everyone out of here by 10:15. So, Dan, welcome. Jennifer Vitelli is the Executive Director of Look Foundation. She spent nearly 30 years as Scituate's Recreation Director before shifting her focus to advocacy when 3 of her sons were diagnosed with PANS. She co-founded New England PANS in 2013, led legislative efforts to secure insurance coverage and a state advisory council, and received the 2021 Commonwealth Heroine Award for her work. Now, as Executive Director of the Look Foundation, she continues her mission to support children with infection-triggered neuroinflammation. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Super excited to be here to lead this conversation today with our visionary leader, Nicole Craven, the genius behind Sing, Explore, Create, and really feel honored to have this opportunity to moderate and to have got to know Nicole and her story, and excited to share it all with you. So I'm just going to read a little bit about Nicole. Nicole Craven, CEO and founder of Sing, Explore, Create, knows that music and arts are an essential part of the human experience, and not only for the talented or those who pursue arts-based careers. They are essential to our well-being and should be more accessible to people of all ages, abilities, and stages of life. She is on a mission, along with her growing team of 9 music therapists, to make sure everyone can experience connecting with others through music and art and gain new tools to support their mental health and well-being. In her work as a music educator and music therapist, she has supported people across the lifespan with many different diagnoses, including, but not limited to, autism, Alzheimer's, dementia, depression, stroke, anxiety, developmental delays, cancer, as well as pre- and postpartum women. She has also worked in many settings spanning education and healthcare, including public and private schools, nursing, rehab facilities, early intervention, healthcare centers, and community-based programs. Nicole's biggest strength as a leader in her company and community is her ability to think creatively and bring innovative approaches to challenges in front of her. I'm going to stop there because there's so much that we want to talk about, right?
Sure.
So there's a lot because I feel I don't want to give it away, right? So we are going to jump in, dive in today, and talk about the inspiration behind Sing, Create, Explore. We are going to talk about the profound impact that you are having, and then hear firsthand from Nicole about the future and how you're shaping it of music art therapy. Sure. So welcome, Nicole. So we'll just dive in. Do you want to, before we can talk about today, do you want to step back and tell us how you got here, a little bit about what music therapy is and your path to today?
Yeah. I never imagined that I'd be sitting here in a space like this that was mine. So years ago, my undergrad is in, I have a bachelor's in music education. And I thought I was going to spend my life in the high school choral room, which I would have been very happy to do, but things kind of changed as I learned and grew in my, just life experiences, and so it set me on a different path. So I was a teacher in the public schools. I actually ended up falling in love with general music in elementary and early education. And so I was a general music teacher in the Avon Public Schools. So I was working with grades K to 6. And then I also started kind of on the side, going through a couple of different trainings to run parent-child music classes, and I was running those just kind of on the weekends in different places. So then as I was kind of on that journey, I found two different things. One that I really loved, even though I was very young and didn't have kids myself, I really was able to connect with the parents, and I really loved that community building piece. For the parent-child classes. I was there for the kids, but more so I really loved facilitating that connection between parents. And then I was finding in the schools, the principal had come to me and said, we have the sub-separate classroom for the students with in special education, and they need, their teacher needs a prep break. So you can play board games with them, but that's what, you just need to take them. And I was like, well, obviously we're going to make music together. So, and it was really great. And it ended up being my favorite class that I taught. And what I was finding is that I also had those students integrated into the general classroom. And I found that they were just soaring and succeeding in the integrated classroom as when I was able to work with them a little bit in a smaller setting and one-on-one. So I was able to do some things that helped them to be more successful in the bigger group, and I really saw a shift and a change in that. So then if you know anything about the education system, you have to go back for your master's. You have to have a master's to be able to continue to teach. And so I said, I want to know more about what's happening here. And I ended up leaving teaching and going back full-time, and I got my master's in mental health counseling and music therapy from Leslie. They have a wonderful expressive arts therapy program. And so then I'm on that journey, and I'm doing that, and I have to do a clinical internship. So if you're working with a music therapist, make sure you ask, are you a board-certified music therapist? Because that is a thing, and it's very important. It's just that the general public is not always as educated on that. And so, as part of becoming a music therapist, you have to do a significant clinical internship program. It's, I don't know, Sam, 1,400 hours. 1,200 hours. And there's also practicums and things that lead up to that. So I was going to school in Cambridge, and there were so many opportunities for internships on the North Shore and in Boston proper. There was nothing available on the South Shore. I'm born and raised Braintree, South Shore girl. I knew I was going to grow my family here. And I was seeing the impact of the services, but there was nothing here. There was nothing on the South Shore. So I started off saying, okay, well, I'm already doing these parent-child classes, and I know I'm bringing now that music therapy lens into those. And so I started to kind of ask around, and I was able to develop an intern site with the first early intervention program to the Arc of the South Shore, one of our other wonderful chamber groups. So in doing that, I showed up. I was the only music therapist there. It was my internship. I worked with a wonderful social worker and we kind of learned as we went, and we developed this really nice program, and they ended up hiring me part-time, but slowly but surely, as families were aging out of EI, they'd say, well, now what happens, because there's no music therapy services available anymore. So I started getting asked, like, could you come into maybe this school and do a little bit, could you work with my kid here or there? And so slowly but surely, I said, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this, and that's how I kind of grew into the business. And then there was only one of me. So eventually I had to start looking at how do I hire more people. And I thought once I was like, yep, I'm going to do this. I'm going to build this beautiful community space. Everyone's going to come together and be really connected in music. So we rented a tiny little space in Rockland, and it was wonderful. They got us going, and I quickly realized that people didn't want to come to me. They wanted me to go to them. So fast forward to the way that our model works, which is that only about 20% of our business happens here in this space, and about 80% of our business happens out in the community. I also figured out that, music therapists work in many different places. And I couldn't be an expert in all those areas. So over the years, I've grown my team who specializes in different areas. So we have, we work in older adult services, and we have a team that works and specializes in that area. We support children and adults with disabilities. We do a lot of work with mental and behavioral health. In fact, we're in a behavioral health hospital providing inpatient services, all the way to kind of more general wellness programs. And then we work in early childhood as well. So, and we've been, like you mentioned, I've been able to grow the team and be able to do that. And what I've also been able to do is because people, businesses, companies, organizations, schools, they don't have the funding in most cases to have a full-time music therapist and to hire a full-time music therapist. So I can hire a full-time music therapist, take care of their benefits, their salary, all of that, and then make sure that these services are out there and accessible to people in the community who really need them. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And she has 4 children.
That's
impressive.
Wow. And I will say, actually, you bring that up, that it turns out that I was able to do all of this. It actually doing this in some ways is crazy. And Sam is here. She's our community partner liaison, and she'll laugh when she hears this. But this has given me more of, in some ways, it's given me more of a balance because I have. She's going to say that I work too much, but it has given me a lot of flexibility. So it's really actually worked out incredibly well. And with every child that I had, it was an opportunity for me to bring another person on the team and to take more clinical work off of my plate and be able to continue to grow in other ways. So it's just worked out really beautifully, I think, in some ways.
So you mentioned that you're out in the community. How many community partners are you?
So we are, I don't know what the exact number is right now, but we go out to about 60 sites in a given week to 2 week period. So a lot of our clients are, we provide ongoing services for, mostly weekly, but sometimes bi-weekly. And then we also have partners that we'll engage with to do workshops and in kind of more short-term series. And because we want to make sure that we talk a lot about accessibility, right? But accessibility is a big word. It means a lot of different things. So we're talking about financial accessibility. So when we can bring our services and work with a nonprofit who can fund services or bring them to the schools, then nobody's paying out of pocket who's actually receiving those services. We also talk about geographical accessibility. So if we can go out there, we know not everybody can make it to Hanover, but the services are so impactful and needed. There's also just not enough music therapists to go around to meet the need. We're a very small field. So again, if I can provide and create sustainable music therapy jobs, then we can spread out those services because we can go into somewhere for just a couple of hours a week. Whereas if you're trying to just hire someone for a couple of hours a week, they're not going to last very long with you. And then we just talk about the accessibility of the information and how people engage with it. So music therapy is not about coming in and singing in a big group and all of that. It can be, and it can be really wonderful. But we do so many different things with music therapy. We're really looking at how music impacts the brain and the body, and can help us in many different areas. And so depending on what we're doing, we know that culturally people are told, well, you can't sing unless you can be on The Voice or American Idol or something like that. Or, it's just, that's like super out of my comfort zone. I could never play an instrument or drum or like, that's just kind of weird. I don't, whatever. Or, oh, that's just for kids. Or, all of these different things that we hear. So we know that, we understand that. We're going to make it really comfortable. And so we want to make sure that you're still understanding how, even if it's just how to create a playlist for yourself that is going to impact the way that your brain is processing that information in a way that's going to get you to, be more relaxed or be more heightened and ready to exercise or do whatever you need to do. And so we do that by going through clinical music therapy services, working with an individual, and really working on different developmental skills or whatever, and then also providing anything from like a 6-week series to workshops to professional development and training, because we want the information to be accessible in whatever way you feel comfortable engaging with it at that time. So if you're not ready to engage in like full-on clinical music therapy services, you may not even need us. But everyone could really benefit from understanding, how do our brains work? How does rhythm impact that? And it's really important knowledge that everybody should have to really help improve their own mental health and wellness. And so we really look at accessibility in that way too. Like, how are we actually getting the information out there that's going to be comfortable for people to interact with? And then we will get you singing and drumming at some point.
Oh, it's amazing. So as you've scaled Sing, Explore, Create, what are some of the challenges that you've run into, and how have you navigated that as a leader?
Yeah. I wouldn't have wanted to work for me 12 years ago. Everything that we do, we're learning as we grow. I think the biggest challenge for us is that what we're doing is fairly new and innovative, and so sometimes we're like, we're flying the plane as we're building it, and so that a lot of it is, trial and error. So, we may put together a program that we're like, yes, there's such a need for this, like, we're doing this, it's going to be awesome, and then we realize, like, oh, wait, maybe, I don't know, the logistics of that didn't make sense or whatever. But I've had to learn a lot. I didn't go to business school. I had to really dive in and not just learn about music therapy, but everything that goes into having a business and payroll and employees. I know. So at first it was just me figuring out, all right, how do I even do this? How do I pay my taxes as a business owner? And then it's like, oh, how do I bring on an employee and do all of that? And so so I think that some of the challenges have just been continuing to learn as we grow. Like, we're in an awesome place. I think in turn, I think that's one of my strengths, is I am a good business owner. I've educated myself a ton. COVID was incredibly challenging for us. Like many people, we shut our doors overnight. I told you we had, so back then we probably had, I'd say maybe 50 regular community partners at the time or whatever it was. And that week when things were shutting down in March, we were slowly getting phone calls. No, like, we got to shut this down for like a little bit, whatever. We were down to one family who was like, I'll still bring my kid in. I was like, okay, well, I've got to meet a payroll for like 5 or 6 people, and I've got one client right now who's willing to come in for a half an hour a week. So how's that going to work? So that's really challenging. But I will say, I think one of my strengths is bringing together a really incredible team, and being honest with my team. And, there's no secrets. We talk about how things are running and how things are operating and all of that. And so I brought them together and said, listen, you're gonna be able to support yourselves on unemployment right now. So do that. I'm gonna stay in touch with you, and let's just see where this brings us. And we would get on to Zoom calls every couple of weeks, and slowly they were full-time salaried with me. Slowly I was like, this is what I can do. I can give you, we can go hourly. We can go hourly for a little bit, and we'll slowly build it back up. And they stayed with me, and we slowly brought it back up. And during that time, I did a lot of crying, and then I also did a lot of learning. And so I took that time where things were really shut down and just dove in and did everything to learn everything I possibly could about business finances, about anything I could with business. And got all of the funding that we could get and all of that. And it really, we call it like SEC 2.0 because we came out a different company, and I wouldn't change a thing. We are so much stronger today because of it, and it ended up opening up so many opportunities. It was like a reset button for us, and it was the hardest thing in the world to go through as a business owner, but there's so much that we're doing today, and the team that I have, that we have 10 therapists now, and that's growing. We wouldn't have that if we didn't have that reset button in many ways.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it just completely changed. Yeah.
I think it speaks volumes about you as a leader, that that your team stuck by you, and I think being honest with them and open is just you are incredible. I would love for you to share with everyone here. Like, we talked for so long about so many things, but perhaps share a story that exemplifies the work that you're doing, like a success story.
Yeah.
I love that.
I
know. We talked about.
I know. There's so many that come from. A recent one, which isn't even like it's not huge. It wasn't a big moment that we even knew was happening in front of us. We have some great programs here. Express Yourself and Stress Less Creativity Club that were created because so many families were saying, like, my kid doesn't have a diagnosis, but something's off, something's not going on. And a lot of this was after COVID, where we're seeing all that heightened anxiety and stress, and the kids had a very different early childhood experience than they should have, and all of these things. And so it's a group where kids can come together, and they're making music and art, but they're also learning coping strategies, and we're talking about this stuff, and we're talking about, like, what am I feeling in my body? And then, okay, well, what do I do with that? And, here are different things that I can do, and it's all through play and music and all of these things. But we had a student who recently had tried the group a couple of months ago, and she was a little second grader. She walked out, and her mom called us and said, she just told me, we walked out, and she just said, they get me, Mom. Aww. That was the first place I went. Wow. They get me. And I'm like, oh my God. So, and we had no idea. We were just like, oh yeah, she did great. We had fun. She was just playing with the kids, even, and in her, like, oh my God. Yeah. So I think that is just huge. We have so many moments like that. As a music therapist, a lot of if we're working in the disability world and realm, many of our clients that we're working with receive speech and OT and ABA and all sorts of other therapies. And oftentimes the music therapy room can be the playground where those skills are all being worked on together. And a lot of times it ends up just kind of coming together in the space. And so those moments are really cool. We've been honored, and it's been amazing to hear people out of their first words and to say full phrases, and and to have them, we had a little one who used a walking device, and we got to see her walk across the room on her own, and there's just so many moments like that are. It's just so awesome. And for us, it's that connection and that piece. And I think that's just how we work and work really well as a team, is that any time that we're working with anyone, we're on your team now. So I don't care if we're seeing you for half an hour a week or 2 days or whatever it is. Let us know what's going on, because we really want to know and be able to kind of work within that. And so, we get to know everybody. When you see those those big moments. They seem little, but they're huge moments. It's so awesome.
It is.
It's really cool. Yeah.
You are changing lives. What about, you had mentioned about you were doing like a caregiver program. So it isn't always just for
Yes,
right?
yes. Okay,
I'd love to hear more
so
about that.
dispelling, preconceived notions about music therapy. It is not just for kids.
Right.
It is not just for people with disabilities. Music therapists in general, there's many different settings that you can work in. Just like in many fields, there's different trainings that you can go through so you can be more of in a medical model or more of a holistic model and all of that. For us, our team, we really focus on that social emotional piece, but we bring that into many contexts. So we might bring that into a medical setting. So when we're in a behavioral health hospital, we're bringing that like kind of more of that holistic piece because we're looking at, again, we know that and you all know this too, that how your mental health and wellness is going to directly impact your physical health. So we are always looking at, and we also see too, if we can focus on that kind of that connecting piece, when we're working in dementia with somebody with dementia and memory loss, it's in that connection that we're really, that magic is happening. And so that's really important. What was your question? I forgot. I don't know.
You had mentioned, we were talking about caregivers.
Yes. Sorry. And those are so important. So a lot of work that people sometimes don't realize that we do is support groups. We do a lot with burnout and wellness. So we work with, we can go in with businesses or go into, I've done a lot of professional development with teachers and educators. And we have these support groups, which support groups sometimes can become like a dumping ground where just like, this stinks. We don't, whatever. And you don't always feel uplifted walking out of them. You have that community because you're like, oh, I got to just kind of get together and, we got to talk about how much this stinks. But what we do is we really go to that next step. So again, it's the same idea of the kids program where we're looking at like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. Okay, we recognize that in our body. Well, what's happening in your mind, in your brain, in your body when that's happening? All right, and then we're going into a little bit of the psychoeducational piece. So, okay, that's all very valid. Let's talk about it. Talk about what just happened this week and how difficult that is. And now let's talk about strategies that we can use and that in realistic strategies. That's the other thing. People hear like, oh, music therapy, like I don't know if I'd be okay engaging with that. We're talking about like realistic strategies that we can engage with. Realistic breathing exercise and things like that you can that you can do and be comfortable doing. Making playlists like that, or just so understanding what's happening, coming in and talking about this is really overwhelming, but then getting those strategies and then doing an actual creative arts music experience together that is really going to build that community. You've all experienced that in some way or another, whether it's just going and attending a concert, whether it's singing in a choir at some point in your life, whether it's just sitting with your child and coloring for a minute, and you just think like, oh yeah, I wasn't thinking about whatever else I had to do. And so we create those moments too so that people can really feel connected and feel like they're leaving like, oh, okay, that wasn't just I was complaining about what's going on, but now we've got tools to kind of deal with it. Yeah, and I also understand that I'm not alone in this. And so that's really important. And that's important across the board, whether it's, mental health we're doing in an inpatient, or whether it's those groups that we're doing, or whether it's a group that we are doing in the schools with some of our, special ed kids. For us, again, it's that peer interaction because that's where the magic happens. We were way too isolated. We know there's still so much isolation going on with screens, social media, all of that kind of stuff. People are not engaging, and it's not just kids and teens, it is us too as adults. Okay, we are like way too comfortable staying inside on our couches and scrolling. And it has a great impact on our brains. And we need to find ways that we can get out and truly connect with people. And our team is incredibly good at making those spaces available and making those spaces comfortable. And in all the good ways, getting you outside of your comfort zone and then connecting with other people and just like, okay, like we hit the reset button. We're good. Yeah.
And it's not just music. You had mentioned when we were talking like writing and, right, there's other.
Yeah. So like I said, there's, that's like a whole other talk on the different interventions and things that we'll use, but it's anything from songwriting. And when I say that, every single person here could write a song, because for us that means many different things. That could be just changing a few words to a song you already know, all the way to creating the chord structure and the lyrics and everything. And we do everything in between. And we have so many ways that we adapt that. And we could all sit here and write a song together with our, like an original song. I promise you we could. And we would break that down and you all would be feeling great. It's songwriting, it's listening to music. Sometimes it's just, understanding how music is impacting us. You've all had that experience. You're like ready to go out and party with your girlfriends and you're like putting on certain music. You've just experienced a loss, and you are not putting that music on. You're putting on something else. We can give you even more information about that, and like really help you to decide. Okay, what do I need in this moment? Helping you to decide how am I feeling right now? Fine, but how do I want to feel, and how can I make that subtle shift? Rhythm is huge. We do a lot with drumming. We do a lot with like guided relaxation, those kinds of things as well. When we're working on speech and communication, that's a little bit more pragmatic. So again, we're like using rhythm and different ways to access those skills as well.
Amazing. I got to see it firsthand with my sons when they were in the hospital, and the music therapist would come in. And one of them didn't want to engage with anyone else, but they worked on a playlist together. And he got to listen to old school rap. That's what he wanted. And it brought him to a different place, like he forgot where he was. And then the other one did want to interact. He learned how to play like the ukulele, and then he made friends with the kid next to him, and they completely forget that they're hooked up to all these things, and they're just transported to another place. Yeah. It's wild. And then with my mom with Alzheimer's, it's been incredible, like that she doesn't know your name, but she remembers that song from 40 years, and you put it on the radio, and she's singing away. So it's amazing. It's magical.
Yeah, it's how because music, a little bit of the neuroscience, very basic, but because music is processed in so many different parts of our brain. So when you're just speaking, there's only like one part of your brain, not just one, but very few parts of your brain are being accessed and utilized. But with music, it's kind of really light, and you can look at, like, Google it. You'll see it's really cool to see the brain images. The way that it's all lit up, and so that allows us. We use that to our advantage when we're working with someone and we're trying to rehab certain skills. And so, with Alzheimer's, that's like one of the last parts of the brain to be impacted. Or with pain, we can block certain aspects of pain, and we're like rerouting the way that we're with language. If somebody has some kind of speech, whatever it may be, a diagnosis or something, or a brain injury or something like that, we can usually find a different pathway in the brain by using the music. And so it's used a lot in like speech rehab, and Spalding has like a wonderful music therapy program, and it's really integral to the treatment of patients. Parkinson's, we can use it for gait training, so just like teaching you to relearn to walk by using the rhythm and everything, and because that's what it's doing. It's in most cases, that's why it's off on pain. It's like unbelievable. You can there are some hospitals that have a music therapist actively in the surgical room, and they're able to use fewer pain medications.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that.
And anesthesia. Yeah, you can use less.
Yep.
Yeah.
We experienced that at Mass General, that in the OR they brought in. It was pretty wild. Yeah. So, it's incredible. Okay, back to leadership. So leadership requires collaboration. And how have you collaborated with other leaders in the community to kind of further the work that you're doing here?
It's so important. It's why we're here, that people are willing to work with us, and to I'm constantly collaborating with people. I think it's just really important as a leader in general. I always say to just listen and be curious. Those are the two things. If you can do those two things, listen and be curious. Like, okay, first of all, what is the need here that I'm seeing or finding or hearing? And then, or there's like a problem going on here, but why is that happening? Because it's not black and white, and we say, and I talk to my staff about that, like, just be curious. If something isn't working, if we're seeing certain behaviors, if we're getting a certain response or vibe from a staff member we're working with, just stop and think, like, okay, well, why might that be happening? And in doing that, we have been able to really kind of, I'm really good at walking into a space and saying, okay, something's not here, but if we just change this little piece around a little bit or, whatever, and that's how we build our programs too with our community partners. The first thing we do is talk to the community partner or potential community partner and just say, why did you even think about music therapy? What's going on? What's the need that you're trying to address there? And then we look at, it sounds like, maybe we could do this kind of program, that kind of program. We can adjust it the way that we, need to meet those needs of who's actually in front of us. But I think the collaboration is huge. We're not meant to do any of this alone, no matter what your business is. And you just have to continue to get yourself out there, have conversations, listen, and just be willing to listen and just hear, like, what are the needs in the community, and then access that creative brain and come up with, creative solutions. And, okay, well, this is my little piece that I can do. Also, not getting overwhelmed. The world is a very overwhelming place right now. There's a lot of people and places and causes that need our help. And so really knowing where you can be helpful, because if you're burnt out, you're not helpful to anybody. So making sure you're staying educated on policies and things that are going to impact your business, your lives, your peers, all of that, and finding the ways that you can really make an impact. And then, like, lifting up other people who are going to be able to do the work that you can't do right now. So I think that's really important as well.
Amazing. So you answered my next question, so I won't have. I feel like you did. Like, I was going to ask about, like, specifically aspiring, young women that are trying to get into the business or start, their own business. What advice would? But I feel like you just gave us all that advice. Anything else?
Just get started. I have our phrase this year on our team, and I have a little mug in my office that says progress, not perfection. I really struggle with that. And especially, I have to delegate. Like, I've been creating more and more leadership positions, and because we are officially at the point where I can't, like, if we're going to continue to grow at all, then I need to have more people who can get inside my little brain and and do some of this creative program development and all that kind of stuff. And it's not going to be done the same way that I do it, and that's totally fine. In fact, sometimes that's better. And so really just get started. Just get started. Don't worry about crafting that perfect social media post. Don't worry about having the perfect pictures on your website. Don't, whatever. Just do something. Get out there and get started. Yeah.
So what do you see as the future, like looking ahead, what are you envisioning in the next 10 years for you, and how can the community here support you?
So we talked, at the beginning about accessibility and really wanting to expand, our impact. And also about the shortage of music therapists that are really out there. And so we are really looking at continuing to expand our professional development and our trainings and our workshops that will continue to get these tools out there. For example, we have like a couple of really great after school programs, but that's really tough to have. In an after school program, you can only be there for 1 hour after school, and you can't really do that at all of the different school departments. So, are there programs that we can develop that we can give the tools and strategies to somebody else who could run the program that's not a music therapist, but it's being overseen by a music therapist? And so we're really looking at building more of those things. A lot of times what we're seeing is when we go into, for example, we do a lot with an adult day program for adults with disabilities, and we have so many wonderful things are happening in the group. There's a lot of community building. It's really great. We're seeing fewer behaviors or things like that in a group. And a lot of times what we're doing is not magic. Mm-hmm. And so, finding ways that we can provide more information to other staff and do some more trainings on here is how you do community building throughout the rest of your week when we're not here. And here are the things that we can do. And same thing with the kind of more the wellness programs in the workplace and all of that.
Which is huge. I mean, we're in the middle of a mental health crisis. 1 in 5 children are being diagnosed with, with a major mental health disorder, which is wild. Mm-hmm. You cannot get into therapy. You're finding a therapist that is taking patients. Yep. So do you see music therapy? I just feel like we had this amazing conversation, and I totally can't wait to engage professionally with you guys, because I know that our foundation there's such a need out there, and I just feel like that it should be the best kept secret, but it feels like we need to get it out there more.
Yes, I will say so. One of we have developed a really amazing reputation within the disabilities community, and we do a lot of great work in that space, and we also do a lot of great work with mental and behavioral health, both with diagnosed mental health and just more preventative, what we would consider preventative mental health. But I think sometimes it is just the messaging, just getting it out there. So please tell people that we're here to do that. But what we see, our role when you're talking about big picture, is there is a mental health crisis. And part of the reason that we have wait lists is because parents, or when they're looking for therapy themselves, adults, because again, we work with adults as well, is that you just think okay, I'm feeling this way, I'm supposed to go sit with a talk therapist. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, that's great, and that's going to help you, and it's wonderful. However, not everybody needs that one-on-one, and in fact, what you would be better off with is this connection in this group, and so that's the void that we're really trying to fill, and we're really trying to connect with more and more behavioral health providers in the area to let them know you have a wait list. Send them to us. If you have people that you're currently working with who really just need some strategies, because not all of us are in crisis. It feels like we are because we're seeing it on social media, everyone being bombarded with all of this stuff. We do have mental health needs that need to be addressed, but not everybody is in crisis. And so if we can clear some of those therapist caseloads so that they can work with the people who are in crisis, and then we can be providing tools and strategies and community that is really going to help, then big picture, we're really doing our part with that. So that is a huge goal of ours. It's something we're really focused on right now. And so that's a big piece of what we're doing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm being mindful of the time, right? So it's 10 o'clock, and we want to be able to do a little Q&A. I think you are such an inspiration, an incredible leader. Everyone in the room agrees with that. So I want to open it up to, does anyone have any questions? You wanted to ask?
Sorry. I missed out my sister.
All right, we'll start here, and then Betsy.
So it's so fascinating, just the range of people you touch and the groups you deal with. And I'm just curious, as you were growing your business and kind of from starting to now, how do you feel like you've grown it? Do you feel it's referral based from medical professionals and healthcare providers, people just individually seeking out the resources themselves, or a lot of all of it?
A lot of referral based when we're talking about our individuals. So basically, the other challenge that with our business is that we're B2B and B2C. So we're business to business and business to customer. So that's a forever marketing issue for us. Yeah. It's okay, well, yeah, so that's a whole other story. So we do some networking. We reach out directly to, schools if we're in a certain area or different hustles and programs. And so we've made some wonderful partnerships through the chamber and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then as far as individual parents, it's a mix. We've been seeing a lot more referrals from other providers. And then some who will just kind of find us organically through word of mouth, as far as what we're doing here at the center with individuals. And we actually are seeing more, we're seeing more PCPs providing and other, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Betsy?
So I guess my question, Nicole, is kind of along the same lines as are the public schools aware of your services and maybe we're blessed on the South Shore with so many adult care programs and whatnot. Are those types of institutions aware of your programs and your offerings here?
I hope so. We do our best to get out there. We do a lot of work on this. I should have mentioned too that we do a lot of work on the South Shore, but our catchment area kind of keeps expanding. And so we're down towards like Plymouth, Kingston, Carver, kind of over by Amiga. We do a little bit of work in Fall River, Attleboro and Fall River in that area. And then out by kind of out 95, Foxborough, that area. And we actually are out in Westboro a couple of days a week, but yeah, it's a little far. That's what it is, a little far. Yeah. It happens to be, and what we say is, if we have a full day's worth of work, then we can go out there. So that's,
Well, you can recruit.
And we can recruit in that. Yeah. We it's really important for us the way that we've built our team that everybody comes here on Tuesdays. And we do regular, so that's the big thing, is you have like a whole team of providers behind you. Yeah. Because in most cases, when somebody does have a music therapist on site that they've hired, it's just them. Yeah. And so we do so much work together with like kind of co-planning sessions and stuff like that. So it's really kind of nice. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So what do you do for yourself? In general, I'm just going to leave it at that. What do you do for yourself? And
not enough. I don't practice what I preach. Not enough.
In terms of like relaxing and anything.
No, I do. It's interesting. That's a forever conversation with my team too about how. So I actually started giving everybody. We have a creative 30 built into our team, which is a really cool thing. I think you should all do it, no matter where you work. And so it's 30 minutes. 30 minutes every other week. Start with something. Start with 30 minutes a month that you give your team to shut everything down. If they're doing it here, they can put a sign on the door, and so then I might create a 30. And so they just do something that has nothing to do with the session. They can, some people come in and play piano for a little bit. You can color, you can draw, you can paint, you can journal, do whatever you want, but just do something creative, whatever that might be, for 30 minutes. During the workout. Yep. Yeah, we have that built in. That's part of their. That's
and
part
you
of
do that how often?
Right now we say every other week.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yep. And then once a month our team gets together and we do team music jam because we are during our Tuesday meetings. And so everybody just gets together and jams. Cool. And it's so important. Yeah. And then as far as what I do, so I do have 4 kids. They all are very involved in the arts. And so for me, like, my kids have a show this weekend. I'm so excited to go see. And for me, that is the reset. Like, that's amazing. And to just, like, shut everything else down. Yes, exactly. So, yeah. So I like going to shows anytime I can. And we have so many good, that's the other thing, guys. Not to just plug myself, but the arts are alive and well on the South Shore, and make sure you engage with them. We have so many amazing programs, Company Theater, Spotlight Music Companies, like so many music schools, South Shore Children's Chorus, so much community theater. There's so much community theater I didn't even know about. So engage with it. And so I try to do that as much as I can. And I love to Netflix and chill every now and then. So,
tune out.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
A little so this is wonderful, and thanks for the talk. And I have a small practical question. At the very beginning of the conversation, you've been kind of alluding to this theme around rhythm and what rhythm can do for your brain. So I guess back to the marketing, how do you communicate this, especially in this kind of marketing environment where you only can keep our attention for like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, depending on the group. What is the definition of rhythm? Because when I hear the word rhythm, there's so much that happens culturally where you're like, well, rhythm is, So when you say rhythm can do so much for the brain,
Yep.
like, what does that mean? Like,
Sure.
practically, how can we as a group apply that to our daily?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I will try to summarize it in like 1 minute. So your body is made up of rhythm, right? Heartbeat, walking is rhythm, sleeping, your circadian rhythm, and you could name a million different other ones. So your body is made up of rhythm, right? When you are feeling stressed, anxious, whatever, we say that, okay, so here's my example. You're driving along in the car, things are going great, somebody cuts you off, and you go, ah, what the heck? You flip your lid, meaning this is my brain. Everything is how it's, supposed to be working and all of that. And this is my thinking part of my brain is like nicely on top of everything and, working beautifully. When I flip my lid, I'm now in my emotional part of my brain. And so we need to find ways to bring this back down. And also what happens during that, if we think about the rhythms in our bodies, right? Our lid is flipped, our heartbeat is racing, we are totally thrown off. If we're really stressed and anxious and it's a chronic problem, then our sleep patterns are off, all of that. So we need to find ways to get back. And so one quick way is literally, like tapping a rhythm, breathing, deep breathing with it, putting on some music. Our brains will entrain to music. So if you can find, set yourself, when we're talking about playlists, we talk about the tempo of the music and not some things with a lot of big changes. So if you can find a piece of music don't just go to this quiet, slow music because that's too much of a jolt to your brain. So we make playlists that slowly bring us back down. And so that's, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of, in a nutshell. Yeah. But that's kind of what's happening. But it's basically our body's entrained to rhythm. That's why being in a room is so important. If you're walking next to someone, your gait is you're gonna entrain with them. And so if we can do that musically and with rhythm and drumming, it's so many benefits to drumming. And it's so easy, everybody can do it. Everybody before you leave can go over and bang that drum. And when we do it together and we get into that rhythm, your entire body, all of those systems are regulating. We're trying to bring ourselves to that regulated state so that we can make good decisions and all of that. And handle the tough. And this is not looking through rose-colored glasses at everything. Life is hard. And we're not going to make those things go away. But we're going to give you tools and strategies to be able to survive and move through it, and be able to still show up for your kids or still show up at work or do whatever, all these different things. So.
Amazing. Amazing. I could say
But thank you. This was really wonderful. And thank you all for being here. The next will is April 3rd. Going to be with Julie Ellis of the Chef Table, and we're going to be at Laura Center for the Arts with the Y in Hanover. So mark your calendars, registration's available online. So thank you both. This was great.
Thank you.
Quick question.